What is you've dealt with the public on the front line as it relates to precious metals for years. What's the biggest mistake people make when it comes to gold and silver?
Actually, there's two of them. They try to time it price-wise. And at some point in time, the music's going to stop, and if you're not in, you're out. And I think the biggest mistake, and this is not just in gold and silver, this is just a mindset. And you can't blame people for this because the world was US-centric for so many years. The biggest mistake people make is they think in terms of dollars. When in fact, and I've said this for many years, once the music stops and when this is over, people are going to think in terms of ounces as opposed to fiat currency units.
Many people ask the question, Bill, okay, so I have now wrestled away from my stockbroker some money. Didn't want to hand it over to me to buy physical precious metals because he said they were barbarous relics, but I got my hands on some of my own money. And so how much do I put in gold and how much do I put in silver, or do I put it all in one, or what do I do? What do you say to those folks?
If storage is not a problem, you want to be way heavier in silver because of the gold to silver ratio. Silver is undervalued to gold. As far as, and I get this question all the time, how much of my capital should I put into gold and silver? And for at least the last 5 years, my standard answer has been whatever you don't want to lose. And that's just, again, gold and silver cannot bankrupt, they cannot default. You can't wake up tomorrow morning and find out you lost everything.
Well, and here's a good example. I talked about this. It's actually on our homepage at davejanda.com. It's for the public. It's called The Road to Freedom. It's my family's battle against the globalist syndicate for 4 generations. My great-grandfather was well known in the beer industry. He actually created the formula for Pilsner beer in the Czech Republic and then emigrated to the United States and had actually built up a beer company, a brewery. And the government came in on the savings and loan crisis in 1907 and 1908 and shut him down. And the only thing he had left were his gold and silver coins, which is what got the family through the Depression. And I take you back to a conversation I had with my dad about 25 years ago, and he was visiting from Chicago, where we are in Michigan, and I got my 401k statement. And I opened it up and I looked at it, and I guess I smiled, and he goes, "Oh, so you like what you see, right?" And I go, "Well, yeah, I'm good with that." And he goes, "Do you know what that number is to me, Dave?" "What?" "Zero."
Right.
Okay? He goes, "Understand something. That paper that you're looking at has a net value of 0, and so do those, quote, assets in there." He goes, "Learn something from your great-grandfather. If you don't hold it,
right,
you don't own it." And it goes back to the counterparty risk issue that you talked about earlier in this conversation.
Well, yeah, for many years, I guess you could go all the way back to 2004, 2005. My partner, Jim, in the past had talked about getting your certificates, getting your stock certificates. If your broker goes down, even in normal times, if they're not merged into another broker, it's going to take you 3 to 5 years to get your shares back. When everything goes down, you probably never get them back. But if you have certificates in hand, that's your proof, that's your receipt that you are an owner in company XYZ. And of course, if you're an owner in company XYZ that, doesn't make anything, well, it's probably going to be a 0. But if it's in something that produces something real, a mining company, an oil company, an energy company, whatever, companies that make things that are necessities, then you are a part owner of something very real and you have wealth. So the amount of inflation that would create it would be destruction anyway. So yeah, don't worry. We could pay the debt off with the gold we supposedly have, which I highly doubt. Okay, that's fine. But you've just destroyed 98% of the population because they can no longer live. They can no longer afford to live.
Bill, as I mentioned early in this conversation, you are a you are a broker with Miles Franklin, gold and silver.
Right.
So, Bill, give us your assessment of where we are supply-wise, where we are demand-wise as it relates to gold and silver that you're seeing on the ground. This is a very important perspective people don't get.
Yeah, the supply has been tight. I mean, it's been tight over the last full year. I can tell you that the demand did slow after Thanksgiving. It's starting to pick up again now, and that's normal. From Thanksgiving to first part of January, it normally slows. But what I'm seeing less small orders. I'm seeing less, I don't know, maybe a drop of 25-30% as far as the small orders.
Mm-hmm.
But I have seen, and going all the way through November, December, January, I'm seeing $1 million orders, multi-million-dollar orders. The orders are getting bigger. So my thought process is you're getting people that have accumulated big sums of money that are all of a sudden getting scared. I mean, I had a guy a couple days ago contact me and say, I got $2 million in the bank and I want it out today. I want to do the trade today. Get me the invoice. Tell me how to wire it. I want the money out of my account today. So, I mean, that is, I think, the new mindset is that bigger money is starting to wise up and starting to flee.
So you got big money coming in, and the silver market is infinitesimal compared to the stock market, the bond market, even the gold market, correct?
Oh yeah, silver's a nothing market. If you take global production, I think it's 15 at current spot prices. I think it's $15 billion a year total. Mm-hmm. And I mean, Washington sneezes $15 billion.
Right. Right.
I could have said something different. These worked. The financial system stays up, but the dollar gets toasted, then you lose purchasing power with the dollars that you didn't lose. And that's why basically all roads lead to gold and silver, because if the financial system comes down, what's the only thing that cannot bankrupt? Or what's the only money that can't bankrupt? Gold and silver. And conversely, if the dollar gets roasted, what's going to happen with gold and silver? They'll at least hold their purchasing power, and when the derivatives get blown up, they'll probably explode to many multiples of current purchasing power. So all roads lead to gold and silver from where the Fed stands now. They're between a rock and a hard place. They only have two choices, and either choice is literally destruction of the standard of living here in the U.S. It's not the New World Order that George Bush talked about in 1991 and more talked about since then. The New World Order was the meeting yesterday between Xi and Putin. And it will not surprise me on any given morning where you wake up and you find out that China and Russia announced that they are going to gold-backed currencies, not convertible currencies, but gold-backed currencies. And that will destroy the dollar. And it will also bring into question the amount of gold that the U.S. has. And, we've talked about this many times. There's not been an audit of Fort Knox and West Point since the 1950s. And you have to ask why. And the only possible reason is because the gold's not actually there. What's going to happen is going to be really bad. And I think there will be a period of time where barter is more prevalent than anything else. But you have to know what is the next currency. What are the currencies in Russia and China? What currencies are they going to use worldwide? And you also have to know what price they're going to mark gold up, because gold is going to be marked up. It will be priced at whatever China and Russia says it is, and COMEX, LBMA, LME, they're going to be irrelevant.
even talking about or thinking about the quote unquote price of gold, and this has certainly been on my mind a lot as clients are concerned about having to pay potentially capital gains tax on increase in nominal value of precious metals, that sort of thing. The whole concept of the price of money in something else almost makes no sense, rather than turning that around and saying gold is, silver is, what's the price of everything in gold and silver? How do you think it might be helpful for people to get their head on straight about that, to really get into what the future is going to bring?
No, I agree. We've been taught, I'm 60 years old, or a little over 60 years old, and we've been taught to value things in dollars, when in fact it's the dollar that should be valued in terms of gold, as opposed to gold valued in dollars. And I've said for years and years that once this thing comes to fruition, you will count your wealth in ounces, no longer in dollars. Because there's going to be days where after the initial reset, there will be days where you're going to see the dollar drop 10, 20% or more in a day's time versus gold. And it's not gold going up, because an ounce that was minted 100 years ago is still that same ounce. But the dollar that was printed 100 years ago is not the same dollar. It's only 1 penny.